They thought they were escaping the past, but the curse followed them. Get ready for a terrifying tale of a haunted home that will leave you questioning what truly lurks in the shadows. From whispered voices in the dead of night to cold spots that defy logic, the walls of a house can hold more than just memories. Tonight, we open the door to 5 chilling, true encounters where the promise of a new beginning turned into a living nightmare. These are not stories of old castles or ancient cemeteries. These are modern homes, purchased with hope, but tainted by a darkness that refuses to let go. Whether it's a scream that returns every night at 3:17 a.m., the ghost of a child who refuses to be forgotten, or a presence that feeds on grief, these stories are not just hauntings, they are warnings. Step inside, and don't forget to leave a light on. This is the curse of the new home. It was their dream home, a cozy, modern single-family house tucked away in a quiet neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona. Olivia and her husband Josh had saved for nearly a decade to buy it. Everything was perfect. New appliances, polished with floors, even the scent of fresh paint still lingered in the hallway. It felt like the kind of place where a family could thrive. But that dream unraveled quickly. The first night, they were barely unpacked. Olivia was drifting to sleep when she heard it, a scream, shrill, piercing, unmistakably human. She bolted upright in bed, eyes wide, heart thundering. Josh groggily reassured her. Probably a fox or raccoon. You know how animals sound in the suburbs. But she knew this was no animal. The sound was full of anguish. It didn't echo through the neighborhood. It felt close, intimate, like someone was screaming just outside their bedroom window. They checked, flashlights in hand. They swept the yard, every room. Nothing. Silence returned, thick and oppressive. They told themselves it was a one-time thing, until the second night, at exactly 3:17 a.m. The scream came again, louder, longer. Josh and Olivia stood frozen, holding each other, too afraid to even speak. The sound was so visceral, it felt like it was coming from inside the walls. They called the police. Officers arrived, canvassed the property, found nothing. Could be stress. One officer offered gently. New house, new environment. Minds can play tricks. But it wasn't just their minds. They installed security cameras, audio recorders, and motion sensors. The cameras captured nothing. But the audio, every night at 3:17 a.m., an identical, blood-curdling scream. They shared the audio with friends. One described it as a woman being burned alive. Another couldn't even finish listening. Josh brought in professionals, electricians, HVAC techs, even a sound engineer from a local university. They all examined the house. No explanation, no wiring issues, no underground utilities, no microwave towers nearby. The sound engineer said, shaking his head, "It's like the sound is just appearing." The couple grew exhausted. Olivia couldn't sleep without sedatives. Josh became withdrawn, obsessed with research. That's when Olivia began digging into public records. The house was new, but what about the land? What she uncovered chilled her to the bone. The lot had once been part of the Phoenix home for the mentally disturbed, a private asylum shut down in 1963 after a catastrophic fire. 13 women died that night, locked in their rooms as the flames consumed the East Wing. The official report listed 3:17 a.m. as the estimated time of ignition. The scream wasn't random. It was a time-stamped tragedy. Desperate, Olivia reached out to a local medium known for her work with trauma hauntings. The woman arrived with candles, crystals, and solemn eyes. The reading was intense. The medium clutched her chest, sobbing as she whispered, "She doesn't know she's dead. She relives it every night. She's burning." She called it residual haunting, a traumatic energy so powerful it replays itself endlessly. like a spiritual echo etched into time. The couple tried everything: salt lines, sage, blessings. Nothing changed. Even sleeping elsewhere didn't help. Olivia began having the same dream, running through fire, hands clawing at the walls, a scream building in her throat until she woke up gasping. They stopped inviting guests over. Their parents thought they were exaggerating. Friends stopped visiting. In the spring, they finally moved out, sold the home at a loss to a young couple from out of town. Josh never talked about it again. But Olivia still wakes at 3:17 a.m. every single night, heart pounding, listening, not for the scream, but for the absence of it. Because what if the silence means it followed her? Have you ever experienced a sound that didn't belong? A voice that didn't come from anyone you could see? Let us know in the comments below. Like this story if it chilled you, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales that may haunt your dreams. Brandon and Mia had been searching for a place to call home for months. Newlyweds, full of hope and plans, they thought they found the perfect fixer-upper in the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina. The house had charm, a wraparound porch, hardwood floors hidden under old carpeting, and even a stone fireplace that Brandon couldn't wait to restore. But what really sold him on the house was the basement. Unlike most basements, which are dark and musty, this one was unusually clean, with smooth concrete floors and freshly painted walls. It felt oddly serene, like a space untouched by time. Mia imagined turning it into an art studio, while Brandon planned to set up a home gym. It was more than just square footage. It was possibility, until the night they moved in. The first few days went by in a blur of unpacking and renovations. They didn't even go down to the basement for the first week. But when Brandon finally descended the steps to measure for equipment, he heard it, a whisper, faint, nearly inaudible, like someone speaking through a crack in the wall. He turned off the radio, called out Mia's name. Nothing. The whisper stopped. But it didn't feel like his mind playing tricks on him. It felt directed, like someone was just behind the wall, waiting for him to hear. He didn't tell Mia. That night, she woke him up. "Did you leave the basement light on?" Brandon frowned. "No." "Why?" "It's on, and I heard something." They went downstairs together. The light was indeed glowing, but no one was there. The whisper had gone. Over the next few weeks, the whispers grew louder. Sometimes they came from behind the shelves, sometimes from the vent near the ceiling. Mia said they sounded like her mother, who had passed away the year before. Brandon swore he heard his old football coach. It got worse. One morning, Brandon went down to find all his tools neatly lined up in alphabetical order. Another night, Mia found a canvas she hadn't started, now half-painted, with a shadowy figure in the background. The couple tried to rationalize it. Stress, exhaustion, sleepwalking. But then the basement started locking itself. They would leave the door open before bed, only to find it shut tight come morning. The key, which always hung by the door, would be gone, only to reappear hours later in strange places. The freezer under their bed, even one sewn into the lining of Brandon's coat. Mia, increasingly unsettled, started researching the property. It turned out that the house had been rebuilt in the 1950s after a fire. The original home, a boarding house for factory workers in the 1920s. But the real story was buried deeper. She unearthed an article from a forgotten local paper. In 1934, the basement had been the site of a gruesome discovery. The body of a 12-year-old girl named Lydia, hidden behind a false wall. She had disappeared months earlier, her case forgotten during the Depression. The suspect? A drifter who had rented the basement room. The false wall had been sealed over and forgotten until Brandon and Mia opened it during renovations. What they found was horrifying. Behind the drywall was a small bricked-up alcove, still coated in soot and charred splinters. Inside were remnants of a child's shoe and what looked like the decayed edge of a hair ribbon. After that, the whispers changed. No longer random or faint, they began speaking names. Brandon, Mia, sometimes spoken slowly, like someone savoring the sound. Other times screamed like a warning. The basement grew colder. The lights flickered. The shadow from Mia's painting started to appear elsewhere, in mirrors, in reflections, even in dreams. One night, Mia sleepwalked into the basement. Brandon found her sitting in the alcove, whispering to herself. When he asked her what she was saying, she responded without blinking. She says she doesn't want to be alone anymore. They called in a paranormal investigator. Cameras were set up. EVPs were recorded. The investigator's conclusion? Residual hauntings intertwined with intelligent presence. A child spirit, confused, lonely, and growing stronger as attention was paid. The final recording sealed their decision to leave. Late one night, while reviewing footage, Brandon heard something terrifying. As Mia walked down the basement steps in her sleep, the child's voice whispered, "Stay forever, family." They moved out 2 weeks later, left everything in the basement. Tools, paintings, even the ribbon they found. The new owners haven't said a word. But Brandon keeps getting calls from an unknown number at 3:34 a.m. Silence on the line. And then a whisper. "Brandon, stay. If you made it this far, tell us what you would do. Would you leave your dream home behind? Or would you try to make peace with what lives beneath?" Let us know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe for more chilling true stories from Cursed Homes. When Laura and Michael Carter moved into their new colonial-style home in Salem, Massachusetts, they were thrilled. The house was a 19th century structure with original brickwork and antique finishes, lovingly restored by the previous owner. It had charm, character, and history, perhaps too much history. Their baby girl, Emma, had just turned 1. The nursery they set up for her was a beautiful, light-filled room on the second floor, complete with soft white curtains, a mobile above the crib, and an old mirror that had come with the house, mounted on the opposite wall. The mirror was vintage, framed and ornately carved with few age-worn spots in the glass. Laura loved it. It gave the room a timeless look. The first strange thing happened just 2 nights after they moved in. Laura was rocking Emma to sleep when she noticed something odd in the mirror, a flicker of motion behind her. She turned quickly. Nothing. The room was still. She chalked it up to exhaustion. But the next night, as she breastfed Emma in the glider chair, she caught a glimpse of a shape moving across the wall. It looked like a woman, just for a second, then gone. Michael didn't believe her. Old glass warps. Light plays tricks, he said. Laura stopped using the nursery at night. Emma started waking up screaming at 3 a.m. every night. When Laura rushed in, she often found her baby standing in the crib, staring directly at the mirror. Once, Laura swore she heard humming. A lullaby, soft, slow, melodic, coming from the mirror. She tried to take it down. It wouldn't budge. Michael eventually agreed to help her move the mirror. They tried to unscrew the frame from the wall, but it was fused to the wood, not nailed, not screwed. It was as if the mirror had grown into the house. That night, they covered it with a heavy blanket. Emma slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The next morning, the blanket was on the floor. They covered it again, wedged it tight, taped the corners. Again, the next morning, on the floor, Laura began to dream of a woman with no eyes, standing beside the crib, reaching out with pale hands toward Emma, always reflected in the mirror, never visible directly. A local historian told them the home had once belonged to a midwife in the 1870s. She had delivered dozens of children in the town, but in her later years, she was accused of witchcraft after several newborns died under her care. The townspeople turned on her. Legend says she died in that very room, the nursery of a self-inflicted wound, staring into that same mirror, whispering a curse. They removed the mirror forcefully, cracking the glass in the process. A low moan filled the room as the mirror shattered. Emma never cried at 3 a.m. again. They stored the broken mirror in the garage, intending to throw it away. But when they returned the next day, it was gone. No one had taken it. The garage was locked. Weeks later, Laura found a shard of the mirror beneath Emma's crib. So what do you believe? Can an object carry a curse? Would you keep a mirror with a history that darkened your child's room? Let us know in the comments. And if this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true horror stories. They thought they'd found the perfect house. Laura and Ben, a young couple in their early 30s, had just relocated from Portland to Asheville, North Carolina, hoping to escape the city noise and start a family. The house they chose was charming in every way. A 1920s two-story craftsman nestled among old oak trees. Its pale blue exterior, arched doorways, and ivy-covered porch gave it the warmth of a storybook home. Best of all, it was a bargain. But there was one thing. The real estate agent had brushed it off. There's an attic, but it's sealed. Probably nothing. Previous owners just never got around to opening it. Laura, curious by nature, made a note of it. They moved in during the spring. Everything felt calm at first. The birds outside, the soft creak of old wood, even the gentle hum of the neighborhood. It felt like peace. But that changed after the first week. Laura began hearing movement at night. Soft thuds, scratching, occasionally a sound like something being dragged. She assumed it was mice. But Ben, skeptical and grounded, checked. Nothing. No droppings, no evidence of rodents. They installed a camera in the hallway's ceiling aimed toward the attic hatch. For days, nothing. Then one night at 3:42 a.m., the hatch door shook. Not once, but 3 slow, rhythmic times. They reviewed the footage, and there it was, the hatch trembling slightly as if someone or something was tapping from the other side. They decided to investigate the attic. Ben borrowed tools, pried the seal open, and pushed up the old wooden hatch. Dust poured down. The air smelled of rot and something sweet, almost like spoiled perfume. Laura climbed the ladder first. The attic was small, cramped, and cold. Far too cold. Only a single wooden trunk sat in the center. It looked antique, with intricate iron clasps and leather straps. Inside were 2 items: a porcelain doll with a cracked face and clouded eyes, and a faded photograph of a family, mother, father, and a little girl. The little girl was holding the doll. Laura showed it to a local historian. What she learned chilled her. The house had once belonged to the Crowley family in the 1940s. Their daughter, Eliza, died at age 7 from an illness. Shortly after her death, the attic was sealed and the parents sold the house. Rumors had swirled among old neighbors about voices in the attic and toys being found moved from one room to another overnight. That night, Laura woke to the sound of faint singing. A child's voice. She walked into the hallway and looked up. The attic hatch was wide open. Things escalated quickly. Lights would flicker only in Eliza's old room. The doll would disappear from its storage box and reappear on the hallway floor. Once, Laura found it seated upright at the dining table. Ben tried to rationalize. Stress, anxiety. But Laura was slipping. She stopped sleeping. She started dreaming of a girl at the foot of the bed. In one dream, the girl whispered, "Don't leave me up there again." They brought in a psychologist who suggested Laura was manifesting stress and projecting her desire for children onto Eliza's ghost. But that didn't explain the doorbell ringing at 3:42 a.m. every night, the exact time the attic hatch had first shaken. Nor did it explain the handprint they found on the inside of the attic window, a child's handprint. They moved out after 3 months. Laura's mental health had deteriorated too much. Ben, still a skeptic, said it was all in her mind, until the day they were packing and heard the attic door slam shut, though no one was upstairs. The house was resold within weeks. The new family, a couple with a daughter, they left a review on a neighborhood 4 months later. Lovely home, but our daughter keeps talking about her new friend, Eliza, who lives in the attic and doesn't like being alone. So what do you believe? Do some spirits remain tethered to the place they once called home? Comment your thoughts below, and if you've ever experienced anything similar, don't be afraid to share. Like, subscribe, and join us for more real haunted stories, because the next one might be closer than you think. When the Chong family bought their dream home just outside of Chicago, they thought they'd found the perfect place to start fresh. 3 bedrooms, a big kitchen, a fenced backyard for the kids, and, most importantly, a finished basement for movie nights and storage. It checked every box. What they didn't know was that the basement came with a history, one that no one had dared to mention. The first time they stepped down into the basement, Emily Chong noticed a chill. Not the usual damp basement cold, but something sharper, something aware. Still, she brushed it off as nerves. New home, new noises. That's all it was. Until the voices started. It began subtly. Emily would be folding laundry downstairs and hear murmuring from behind the storage wall. Not words, just tones. She thought it was the vents. But the HVAC tech found nothing unusual. Her husband David heard it too, once, late at night while putting away boxes. A low, rhythmic whisper, almost like someone repeating a prayer in the dark. They tried recording it. When they played it back, they heard something they hadn't noticed before, a faint childlike giggle at the end of the track. Their kids, Leah and Danny, refused to go down there after that. Leah claimed she saw someone crouched in the far corner, just behind the furnace. He was all black, she said, and his face wasn't right. The family stopped using the basement altogether. Emily became obsessed. She started digging into the house's history, searching through local archives and old newspapers. What she found made her blood run cold. In 1981, the home had belonged to a man named Douglas Minter. He lived alone and rarely spoke to neighbors. One winter, foul smells led authorities to search the property, and they found the bodies of 2 missing children buried in the crawl space beneath the basement floor. Minter was arrested and died by suicide in jail 2 days later. The home was quietly renovated and put back on the market by spring. The Changs were the 3rd owners since. After Emily discovered this, she confronted the real estate agent, who denied knowing the details, claiming disclosure laws didn't require mentioning anything beyond the previous 10 years. The family considered moving, but they had poured everything into the down payment. That night, the whispering became clearer. David, who had always been a skeptic, swore he heard someone say, "Get out." Emily began sleeping with the lights on. Leah started sleepwalking, always ending up in front of the basement door, standing still, eyes open but unseeing. David installed a baby monitor outside the basement entrance. One night it recorded hours of static, except for a brief moment at 3:14 a.m. when a voice whispered, "They're still here." The family's mental health declined rapidly. Emily suffered panic attacks. David began drinking. Leah started drawing pictures of a man in the basement with black eyes and no mouth. They brought in a priest, who refused to finish the cleansing ritual after hearing something whispered directly into his ear. He left shaken, muttering prayers. Even after placing crucifixes and protective symbols around the house, the air in the basement felt thicker, darker. They decided they had to leave. The Changs sold the house within weeks at a significant loss. They didn't care. Months later, Emily received an email. It was from a new homeowner, a single man who worked nights and hadn't spent much time at home. He asked a simple question: "Did you ever hear voices from the basement?" Emily never replied, but she checks the listing sometimes. The house has been on and off the market 6 times in 4 years. They say the walls remember, that the ground holds on to what it buries. So tell us, if you heard whispers from the basement, would you listen or run? Let us know in the comments. And if the story chilled you, get a like. Share it with someone who'd never dare go down the stairs at night. And subscribe to Tales Nameless for more true horrors just like this. Because your next home might already be haunted. And there you have it. 5 terrifying, real-life stories of people who thought they were simply moving into a new house, only to find themselves trapped in a nightmare. From the unexplainable screams in the night, to haunted photographs in forgotten attics, to ghostly whispers from the basement, one thing becomes terrifyingly clear. Not all new beginnings bring peace. Sometimes, it's not about what the house looks like. It's about what still lingers inside. These stories force us to ask, can a place hold on to pain, to grief, to something far more malevolent? Or is it we who carry the curse with us from home to home? Will you believe? Could you sleep peacefully in a house that hides a tragic past? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts, your stories, your fears. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to Tales Nameless, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next descent into darkness. Because the next story might just be yours. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and never ignore the whispers in the walls.